Do you mind if I ask you, Bill, then, how do you think of your Christianity in relation to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think of it in much the same way that I think of my belief in friendships and my experience of friendships, or the way that I come to believe in justice or things of that nature. It's not an extra brain thing. It's all mediated through my brain, and it's mediated through my experience. Of course, a lot of this I inherited from my family and my culture of origin. But anyone who inherits that gets to a certain age, and you start thinking, was I fed a lot of hokum or something, and you start measuring things against your existence, against your experience. And I think that you come fundamentally and deeply to an interpretation of the world and what kind of universe do we live in. And do we live in a holy universe that has moments of holiness shot throughout if we only have the sensitivity to see it and call it what it is? Or do we live in fundamentally a pointless universe? And you can come to either of those conclusions, but I think that kind of question is the start of the religious quest. And I don't think it involves anything magical from outside the brain. I think it comes from our questioning, our curiosity, our motivations, what we find to be true, measuring doctrine against experience. So I don't see it as profound and mysterious in that sense.
Does that mean that it all comes from the brain, or is the holy something that is external?
Well, I think for a theist, the source of holiness, at least, and the source of all life, and the source of the universe is external. Okay, I'm not a pantheist. I don't think that God is simply the sum of the universe, but I think that there are many clues in our creation, and I do believe that we were created through evolution. I have no problem with that at all. We can talk about that if anyone wants to raise that and talk about it. But I think that in that creative process, we're created with the ability to ask these questions and to yearn after a fulfillment and a wholeness and a holiness to our existence, and that it's a part of creation from a creator that was actually external to the universe.
Got it. When it comes to a soul, though, are you a dualist or a monist?
Soul is interesting. I personally, and this is my own personal interpretation, I'm a materialist, but I'm a sort of a non-reductive materialist. I made a comment earlier that I'm not a reductionist ideologically speaking. So I think that the religious concept of soul refers to what you were talking about earlier, quoting Crick, about your sort of innermost essence and the sum of sort of values, beliefs, aspirations, memories, this sum total of higher level functions that makes me who I am. That's what religious writers, or some religious writers, refer to as the soul. And in some epochs of Christianity, it has been regarded as something external. The soul inhabits the body, then the soul leaves. But that's not actually the Hebrew tradition, from which Christianity comes. So Nancy Murphy, who's a professor of Christian philosophy at Fuller Seminary, has written an excellent little book on this. I think it's called what's it called? Brain and Spirit, or Embodied Minds. I can't remember, something like that. It's Nancy Murphy at Fuller Seminary, and she obviously knows this much better than I do. But her argument is that the existence of this external soul is something that came relatively late in Christianity. I'm very comfortable defining that as high-level states of the nervous system, and something about those states, if there is a soul that survives after this body rots, it's something about those external states that has to be captured in another reality. And by the way, I don't think that's a crazy thing to think. We have people all around us in Silicon Valley now talking about downloading our consciousness into chips, right? And taking all of the sum of these synaptic connections and putting ourselves into a non-perishable kind of existence. So this isn't just a religious idea that this is possible scientifically. This is actually commonly talked about here. So I think that it's not a crazy thing to think about at all.